Will arresting the leadership drive the organisation underground and turn it towards Al-Qaeda?
No, I think that once again, if you look at the history of the Muslim Brotherhood, what is going to happen, to be underground is something they have been used to for the last 60 years with Nasser and then Sadat and then Mubarak. Nothing new is this. And I don't think it's, the people who are radicalized within the Muslim Brotherhood, who left the Muslim Brotherhood in the 60s and then the 70s, left the Muslim Brotherhood. So the mainstream is going to remain peaceful, underground, yes, because they have no other choice. And I think that once again, we have to be quite clear here that with all these arrests and everything which is happening, we have to be careful not to portray what is happening in Egypt only between Islamists and the Muslim Brotherhood and the army. Lots of people today are realizing in Egypt, coming from the secularists and coming from the youth, that what is happening now is a coming back. At the time I'm talking to you, Mohammed Morsi is going to be charged with new accusation while Mubarak is going to be freed. So this is something which is a coming back to the Mubarak's era.
How can you be so sure that the Muslim Brotherhood underground would be a peaceful movement when we're seeing it blamed for the attacks on churches right across Egypt in the last few days?
I think that over the last 3 years and the 60 years before this, the Muslim Brotherhood with the Coptic Church were very close and in fact relationship. And during the last few weeks over the peaceful protests, they were protecting and they were not at all targeting the Coptic churches. What is happening, it's not new. Once again, Sadat did it before him. We had and Mubarak did it. He has went to justify towards the West what is happening. Burning churches is something that could be done by the intelligence. We have no proof that the Muslim Brotherhood are doing this. So I think we have to be very cautious with this.
You do not believe that it's Muslim Brotherhood supporters who have been attacking the churches, even though they were angry at the Coptic Pope's support for the army?
It will be completely silly. They found weapons in the sit-ins in the Rab al-Adawiya, while for 5 weeks they were not using this. I think that this is exactly what the army is doing. Look at the propaganda that you have in all the Egyptian media today. They are all terrorists. So the best way to do this is to portray them as, carrying weapons and targeting the church and the Coptic, while for, 60 times Morsi was saying the Coptic citizens are Egyptian citizens. I think that we have to be critical with Mohammed Morsi's government. We have to be critical with the Islamists, but we should not buy at all what the propaganda coming from the army is doing now and portraying now, because this is something which is not new. We have had this with Mubarak saying, you better go with us than to go with the terrorists. So the Muslim Brotherhood, we may be critical towards them, but they are not terrorists and they are not extremists.
Let's leave aside then for a moment what you call propaganda on Egyptian television. Let's talk about public opinion. I heard this for myself in Cairo last week. It is the overwhelming view that you hear from people in the streets today. They are happy to be rid of the Brotherhood. And one of the reasons they're happy to be rid of the Brotherhood is because of the dismal record in government for that year.
I think that you are right. I think that this cannot be removed, and this has to be taken into consideration. I think that over the year, and I said it before, I was very critical towards the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamists before the election, during the election, and afterward. And what they did last year when they were in power, many people were not happy with what they did, and we have to be critical. This does not justify the killing of civilians and supporting the army. This is one. The second is, we are talking about social networks and Facebooks and all this. The great majority of the Egyptians are following the news and the propaganda coming from the media, internal domestic media, is something which is very powerful. So I think you are right. Many people and the Muslim Brotherhood have been isolated from the people now, and this is quite clear. This is why I was calling a civil alliance, people coming from the civil society, secularists, Islamists, and others coming together to say, we may not be happy with what happened last year, but we are not accepting that the army is coming back. So I think that what you are saying is true, but it's not the whole picture.
Okay, let me just ask you a couple of bigger questions because we are short of time. And this one came into us via Twitter. Will the West ever accept a democratically elected Islamist government?
I think that, 12 years ago, this was said about the Turkish, and then now we are happy with them and we say, oh, it's better than before. I think that the true question is not if the Arabs and the Muslims want democracy, is as was, the advisors to the Turkish Prime Minister put it once. He said, the true question is for the West to tell us if they are ready for democracy in the Arab world, because at the end, the United States are supporting the army and they are supporting Saudi Arabia, which is supporting the army. So it's not about democracy,
Okay.
it's all about geostrategic interests. Now put it like this, You have to listen to this. You have to listen to the fact that Saudi Arabia is saying democracy is not Islamic. There is no right for women, but you don't call them Islamists, and they are supported by the United States. And for the same reasons, the United States are saying we are supporting the army.
Professor,
look, that's not consistent.
Just finally, in the last 10, 15 seconds, what would your grandfather think of today's brotherhood?
Oh, I think that he wouldn't be happy with what happened to the organization over the last few years. He would be critical, I think, for many reasons. And I think as a Democrat, as the people of rights, he would say nothing can justify such a repression. So being critical should be a point, and this should be part of our discussion, supporting execution and killing of civilians who are peacefully protesting. This cannot be. And I think that you and me in the West, and I'm a Western citizen, we have to come together and to say we are critical of what the Islamists are saying, but we cannot accept what the army is doing now to its own people. This is unacceptable in democratic terms and principles.